So today I'm coming out with a video to talk about what made the Bungie trilogy of the Halo games so great. Now, over the last decade and a half, I feel that, it's quite unanimous. There's been a massive problem with Halo games in general. There has been an obvious decline, and in my view, what saddens me the most is the quality of the storytelling that's been put out by 343 Studios. uh, f- I started playing Halo 2. That was my first Halo game. And I'm going to start off with talking about Halo 2 in particular because for me, the storyline just hits the best. And it's a perfect bridge between 1 and 3. And there are lots of themes that I want to explore in this video in terms of how epic the storytelling from Bungie was. Nowadays, I don't think the new games are hitting the mark for me to even bother playing, for instance, Halo 5 or Halo Infinity again. I've only finished the story and the campaign once in those games because I just don't care enough to want to go back and play. But you can get me to play Halo Combat Evolved 2 and 3, heck, even ODST, Reach many, many times for the story alone. Of course, we know that the gameplay is fantastic, and they still are across the 343 games. But the story is so meaningful to me, and I feel strongly that I'm missing out on it. And it's a shame that I'm having to draw myself back to the original games. So we're going to look at several different facets of each of the games and how the storytelling was done and why I feel so passionate about these original Bungie games. So I'm going to start off with Halo 2 because I think, in my view, Halo 2 story was one of the most powerful ones. We can argue that the gameplay and the level design wasn't the best in Halo 2 given all the narrow corridors. There's not much in the way of expansiveness that we had with Halo 1 and going on to the Halo 3 and some of the other Halo games. And that can be another video for another day. But you have so many dynamics going on in Halo 2. You're obviously playing as the Master Chief, trying to help support the struggles that the UNSC is having against the Covenant. Unfortunately, his story ends in a cliffhanger with the finish the fight thing that has started off problems and uproar. But we were asked to play as the Arbiter, and as you probably would have just seen in the first 2 minutes of the video, we don't know who this guy is, and we only suddenly find out that he was held blame and responsible for the destruction of the original Halo ring. There were no brutes in Halo 1. As you can see, Halo 2 introduced brutes into the game. They offered their own unique gameplay dynamics, but suddenly we are exposed to this new faction who are militarily as big as the elites in as a head-to-head. So we can see there are some rifts between them from that cutscene. But what I found was so beautiful about the opening of Halo 2 was that on one hand you've got a hero in Master Chief being celebrated along with Sergeant Johnson, and the Arbiter being masqueraded around like a criminal, held responsible, held to blame for the destruction of the Halo ring, and he takes that on like a complete warrior. That's suggestive of the fact that he is in complete alignment with the belief systems of the Covenant. He's not going to beg for mercy. He will accept the situation as it is. And it's a bit of a sad way for him to go because there was a lot of complications in the story of Halo 1 regarding the release of the Flood, which has not helped the matter for the Covenant and Arbiter's fleet. That's probably ended up in a situation where the UNSC had to destroy the Pillar of Autumn to knock out the Halo ring and try and contain the Flood situation. But we don't know prior to that who this guy was. And I think the beautiful thing is with the Halo 2 game is we are given the opportunity to see the Covenant side of the story and what their perspective was.
Or a soldier of the United Earth Space Corps.
One of the fascinating aspects in the way Bungie has done the storytelling, in particular in Halo 2, was the fact that moments of the story unfold as you're playing the game. As you're seeing right now, the UNSC fleet are quite chuffed to bits that the Covenant are suddenly retreating so quickly from the Athens and Malta station. only to be witnessing a literal explosion where it completely wipes out the station. This is adding to complete confusion and abject panic. Uh, I suppose in the one instance you think, oh well, it's just one station, it's quite bad, not great, but the panic starts setting in and you start thinking, what's going on? What are they trying to set up? You then go to the next hangar room, only for the exact same thing to occur with another station, and you literally can witness this from outside the window. And for the original Xbox to have this kind of stuff going on, I thought that was quite innovative means of providing some sort of storytelling, in-game cinematic experiences happening whilst you're playing the game. It's taken me a number of run-throughs of the story to figure this out, to notice these things, these small subtle things, because in your initial playthrough you're probably just going to rip right through the level and go at it, killing off the grunts, elites, and just have at it. But once you pick up these subtle storytelling cues, you start to realize, oh my gosh, what else is there that I'm able to see through the game? What else is there within the gameplay and the scenery around me, or even in the communication between the NPCs? So for instance, in the next level, when you crash land at New Mombasa, the whole courtyard thing, you literally can pick up on cues on where the enemies are as you're going through that segment, and it will allow you to figure out where they're coming from and how to plan your attack basically. The next level that I wanted to go through that sticks really strongly with me is the grave mine level. So we suddenly figure out that the prophets have stripped off the elites of their rank and status within the Covenant, demoted them following Master Chief literally killing the Prophet of Regret. The elites were held blame for this situation, and the brutes have been provided the higher military status. Doesn't go down very well with the elites, but they took it on their stride, and I suppose multiple things have happened. There's been a betrayal of the elites. Prophet of Truth doesn't want to have anything to do with them, and the Great Schism occurs. The reason I love this concept is you are now seeing a three-way battle unfold. Add on a fourth if you include the flood, which I'll get onto in a bit. But throughout that level, what I find quite incredible is the fight between the brutes and the elite faction. And you'll see it happening right here when you enter the Mausoleum of the Arbiter. Literally brutes, elites, head to head, coming together, clashing. You can see the individual ways in which they do their combat. So the brutes are charging in, the elites are more held back, trying to figure them out tactically. And you can see the dynamics between the elites and the brutes in this instance. What I find the most amazing thing about this level is the fact that you've got Breaking Benjamin's Blow Me Away song, which fits right into the type of musical structure and themes of Halo 2. And you literally could sit back and witness the two groups fighting each other, and then you pick off the last few remnants of the enemy. You don't get that anymore. I don't think so. And the fact that you see these two groups charging at each other, and even throughout the level you will see there are many segments where there's bits of skirmishes occurring with the elites and the brutes. And it just goes and tells you how big of a political situation this is. That it's not just a game where you're shooting aliens, or you're trying to stop some big bad evil from happening, i.e. the firing of the rings, i.e. the fact that this religious structure which Bungie have developed so well with their hierarchical system, the sort of agendas that the prophets have, and how they're controlling all the other races. You just don't, I don't feel like you get that anymore. Like, sure, the Covenant has come back in Halo 4, Halo 5, but who gives a damn? Like, what is their main purpose? Here we kind of understand a bit more about the religious structure of the Covenant and their ultimate aim. They think that firing the rings is going to lead them to divinity salvation. However, through Halo 1 we know that the rings are ultimately involved in wiping out all sentient life in the galaxy to prevent the flood. from running riot basically across the galaxy, and it's this blind faith from the Covenant which we see again and again and again, and only till the elites realize the truth of the situation and they join the humans, you think Great Schism. And this is where I'm going back into Halo 1 now, just to explore the story dynamics from there. We are somehow awestruck by the discovery of the ring. What its purpose is, we don't know, but we know that there is some significance that the Covenant have regarding this ring structure, and that lighting up those rings is what's going to lead them to this great journey situation. Halo Combat Evolved, I don't want to repeat how significant of a game is, but of course the Silent Cartographer level, which I'm showing you right now, shows the way that Bungie has allowed us to explore this world with the expansiveness of it all. The Halo ring itself was used as a way to put the story forward. Throughout the levels of Combat Evolve, you see how the mystery of the rings and its purposes is being looked into. We already know that from the Covenant side of things, the Halo rings are there to deliver them to salvation and to create godhood and a divine status. But it all kicks off when humanity realizes on the 5th level, through the intervention of Cortana, that the Halo ring is a weapon to destroy the Flood. What I love about Halo Combat Evolved storytelling in this instance is, at some point we'll be looking at how the Flood gets introduced and the abject horror that they display. But whilst you're doing all of that, before you get introduced to the Flood, you are given multiple levels to explore the beauty of the Halo rings, and also Covenant structure in the 3rd mission, Truth and Reconciliation. So some of the gameplay footage I have, in particular of the Silent Cartographer, is just allowing me to appreciate, and I hope you guys do understand, how gorgeous this game looked back in 2001 and even today. But when you go and proceed through the story, you then reach the segment where you come across the Flood and how you're introduced to a 3rd faction, and they play and completely differently to how the Covenant is. So you're having to switch up gameplay styles as well in order to try and deal with the Flood threat. But I think what I find the most fascinating about the whole way that the Flood situation has unfolded in the Halo is, again, the way Bungie has gone about to introduce this new faction. Because to me, fighting the Covenant seems fun, especially with the superb gameplay that the Halo games have. However, fighting the Flood is a whole different ball game. We come across the level where you are introduced to the Flood and you're automatically succumbing to this eerie backdrop. Why are the Covenant running? Why are the Grunts and the Jackals fleeing in abject terror? They're the ones that have just glassed Reach a couple of days ago, before the starting of Halo 1. All of a sudden, it's as if the craps hit the fan, and it's a complete mystery, complete surprise. What on earth is going on? What could be something that's causing this Covenant structure to feel so terrified? And again, you can see how it's playing through as you're playing the game, marveling in the situation, and the mystery is unfolding in terms of what is going on in terms of the player's mind and the viewpoint. It starts off quite slow in a moody level with this swamp background, and the background music, I do have to agree, does help set the tone really, really well. If you pay close attention to the screen, you can actually see one of the elite combat forms running around. I thought that was quite cool, and it takes a keen eye to notice that. I suppose, can you classify it as a bit of an Easter egg? I'm not entirely sure. You then continue to proceed through the level. Furthermore, you're seeing more Grunts and Jackals running away in abject terror. As you keep proceeding through the level, you suddenly stumble across a complete mess and melee. You haven't been in this room, so that blood is not explained by the doings of Master Chief, only to run into this Marine who's equally freaked out by the situation, just as much as the Grunts were and the Jackals that were running away from the situation. just sitting there and listening to him speak as he is in obvious terror and fear, that's a 2-minute thing. He didn't have to be there. You don't have to listen to that. You don't have to listen to him speaking in panic, but it's there. I think that was quite cool, that the fact that Bungie has developed on this unknown enemy at this point for anyone who's playing this for the first time round. But I love the way they've incorporated the way that the Flood was introduced as the Master Chief picks up on a helmet, and the cam footage where you see the first interaction between the UNSC forces and the Flood, and how much of a terrifying force they are. I will keep my mouth silent whilst you watch through this segment.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there was an accident, you know, friendly fire or something?
What do we have, Sergeant? Looks like a Covenant patrol. Badass elite units. All KIA. Real pretty. Friend of yours?
Nah, we just met. Got a bad feeling about this.
Boy, you always got a bad feeling about something.
Sarge, can you hear me?
What's going on, soldier?
He's got contact. Lots of them. But they're not Covenant. They're just tearing through us. What the? Oh, no!
Corporal, do you copy? Over. Mendoza, get your ass back up to second squad's position and find out what the hell is going on.
But-
I don't have time for your lip, soldier. I gave you an order.
Sarge! Listen!
What is that? Where's that coming from, Mendoza?
I don't... There! Get out! Hold still! Hold still!
Let him have it.
Ah!
Sergeant. Damn it, Jenkins! Fire your weapons!
There are too many,
Don't
Sarge!
even think about it.
Listen, Rocco!
Jenkins!
Once Master Chief puts down the helmet, he realizes the video playback is finished. It's now his turn to face this enemy, and very quickly you realize that there is a very different way in trying to outwit the Flood. You can't just go in tactically picking them off. I swear they just swarm you. And throughout this level, or any time I run across the Flood, the first thing in my mind is, how the hell do I get out of this level? How can I finish this quickly? There is simply no time to think, because thinking will get you wiped out by these guys. They literally will come at you in hundreds and swarm you. And I think what I enjoy about the Flood, and it's sad to see that there isn't much of a comeback, and I probably would be one of those people that wouldn't advocate for it, because they've served their purpose in the original Bungie trilogy so well that I don't think it is fair for them to come back in case, you know, Bungie set the bar high when it comes to the way they dealt with the Flood and the storytelling involving the Flood. Every single Halo game which had the Flood 1, 2 and 3 in particular, well obviously they're the only ones they were in because of the story, led me to want to finish them off quickly, because man, I was terrified. In some sense, there was just no way in dealing with them efficiently. You just had to think quick on your feet, pick up the best weapons and deal with them. And the reason I bring them on in terms of why the storytelling was so amazing with the Bungie trilogy is because with the Flood, with the way that they are portrayed and how they fight, you start to realize how big of a threat they are to the galaxy. And it's one that the Covenant, I think, were willing to ignore. They still wanted to light up the rings, whereas the UNSC and later on when the elites join, they have to think of other ways to try and wipe them out and contain them without having to light up the rings in their so-called quest for the Covenant's divine power and intervention, all this sort of stuff, and think of other ways to deal with them. such as the destruction of the Pillar of Autumn, for instance, in the end of Halo 1. But it's the feelings that the Flood evokes and the levels that they were designed to play around in that makes me feel quite terrified and quite, I wouldn't say scared, but there is that feeling of abject fear as well, because these guys are relentless. They don't hide. You can throw a sticky grenade at them, a plasma grenade, and they'll just run at you. So you got to be careful with what you do, how you fight these guys. Following this level, the library level, which is arguably one of the more unfavored levels in the game, yeah, it's panic stations for me. I hate playing that level, but I respect what Bungie did with using that level to evoke that sense of creepiness, that fear as well. Then you come back and fight the Covenant and you think, yeah, no problem, Flood is done and dusted, I can breathe a little bit, and that's how I felt. But I'm moving on to Halo 3 now, because I wanted to talk about how Bungie has done really well in portraying the Shipmaster. I think in the beginning you would have noticed how he introduces himself with the Shadow of Intent, and in this level where the Flood infestation arrives in planet Earth, you join up with the elites and you think, damn, let's give them hell, man, let's give the Flood some real problems. And I like the way that in this level you can actually see I'm not really doing much, the elites are completely taking control of the situation. But this is my favorite cutscene from Halo, and I'm just gonna take back seat here and let this play out.
Brute ships, staggered line. Shipmaster, they outnumber us 3-1.
Then it is an even fight.
All cruisers fire at will. Burn their mongrel hides.
They outnumber us 3-1, then it is an even fight, burn their mongrel hides. It's dialogue like that which really helps you feel pumped and you think, right, let me give them hell. Let me give the Covenants hell. I've got the elites on my side. In some ways I would think that Artas Fadam, however you pronounce his name, I don't know, I think he's a lot cooler than the Arbiter in some ways, because some of the lines that he delivers, some of the ways in which his voice portrayal has been done makes you really feel like you know you got a leader on your side. And I do wish they had a game just involving him. Probably will need a game with the Arbiter, God knows if that's happening. But the only criticism I have of Halo 3 is the fact that we didn't have any Arbiter levels, but I suppose they were trying to hone that story in on one focused goal, to try and finish the fight, to try and stop the Prophet of Truth from activating those rings to go to this great journey business or whatever, to stop all sentient life being destroyed across the planet, or galaxy to be more accurate. But where Halo 3 sticks out the most to me is, aside from the story, we know that it's coming to a climactic head. There has been a lot of sad partings with a lot of the UNSC characters such as Miranda Keyes and Sergeant Johnson. But near the end of Halo 3, it's quite interesting to see the parallels drawn between Lord of the Rings, where Guilty Spark is obsessed with protecting his ring, in which another one has been created to replace the destruction of the ring in Halo Combat Evolved. And I felt that was quite cool. But in a nutshell, I do wish that 343 were able to make Halo games which have a compelling story. As I said, I'm not saying the games are terrible, they are far from what the Bungie ones were in terms of storytelling at the least. They got the gameplay fine, I can't complain about that. But I don't want to have to read the expanded lore. I think they're great, you know, I'm talking about the books. Halo 4, 5, 6 sort of demanded that you read some of the books that they produced, and I plan on doing that because I do enjoy Halo as a whole. But with the original Bungie games and ODST and Reach, you didn't need to have that prerequisite. You didn't have to go out of your way to buy the books to understand things. Halo 4 I didn't think that was a bad game. I think it explored the human side of Master Chief and his relationship with Cortana, and I think they've done it well. And I was willing to explore that in more detail. But unlike the Bungie trilogy, or ODST and Reach, each of the games had its own different style of story and agenda, which did not entirely make it didn't flow well. Where you could jump off Halo 1 and go to Halo 2, for instance, and you can understand where the story is flowing. I didn't feel that in the Halo 4, 5 and Infinity with what 343 has put out. So it does come with a lot of sadness when I play this game. I just don't feel like the epicness of what Bungie did. It has been transferred through to 343 Industries, and now they're called Halo Studios. I mean, I don't know what's going on, but I think there's a lot to be said about how 343 has handled Halo as a game, and I suppose that's a different video for another time. But in terms of storytelling, I really don't think that we are ever going to get the kind of epicness with the set piecing narrative as you're playing the games, or the amazing dialogue as evidenced by Sergeant Johnson, the shipmaster, especially the Arbiter, and having an enemy that is as frightening as the Flood. Yeah, we had the Prometheans. I found them freaking annoying, to be honest. And as a third faction, they paled in comparison to the Flood. Even in Halo 6, I think the only other thing is there is nothing for me, there's nothing compelling for me to say, I just want to play Halo Infinity for a little while, or Halo 5. I'm not bothered. I couldn't care, and that's the sad thing, because I want Halo to make me care. I want Halo games to make me think, you know what, I've played this 100 times, there is no harm in me doing it again, because I love the story, and I want to expand on the lore by wanting to read the other material that's out there. So anyways guys, hit like and subscribe. I'll come back with another video. Thank you very much.